What is up, guys? This is Derek Kirby with the Dallas Prospect, and I am trying something a little bit different today with regard to the format of the show. Let me know what you think. I'm basically trying to take full shows, chop them up into individual segments, and upload them that way rather than leaving the full hour-long or whatever it ends up being podcast on there, because I don't think those get viewed enough all the way through, because I think people will click on a video wanting to hear a particular segment or subject matter, and when they don't immediately hear it, they don't really go searching through the rest of the bar for it, the rest of the video for it. So I wanted to do this instead. So this is going to be a little bit of an experiment here, but bear with me, we'll get it sorted out. We'll get all the kinks worked out of the system. In the meantime, we are going to be focusing first on the Mavericks post-game show. Now, I didn't get to do this last night because, well, I got a 7-week-old baby, and sometimes she can't sleep because she's got colic. So, yeah, that was fresh hell that kept me away from ever actually getting on the show last night. So here I am today trying to run it back. Might be a little bit more condensed since some time has gone through, but we'll dig right into the good stuff here. So in this game, we have the Mavericks facing off with, in all likelihood, their first round matchup with the Clippers. There's no room for the Mavericks to move up, but the Clippers feasibly could move down because Denver is playing so well right now, especially Michael Porter Jr., who, if you go all the way back to the Luka Doncic draft, you'll remember Annie and I were very, very high on. In fact, we wanted him when the belief was that Mo Bamba might be the Mavericks guy. We wanted Michael Porter Jr. because we didn't think the Mavericks were going to be able to move up into the top three to take Luka. Thankfully, they were, and I think we're better for it, but Porter's been going nuts for Denver in the bubble. Back to the game itself. Odds are this is a first-round matchup for the Mavericks, and they had an opportunity here because while the Clippers are, I think, unquestionably the deepest team in the league, they weren't at 100%. Lou Williams not 100% right now. Beverly was out for the game, and I think they were also missing probably Sixth Man of the Year, Harrell. So you had an opportunity to make something happen. If it's not Harrell, by the way, for Sixth Man, it's going to be OKC's Schroeder. But regardless, Schroeder. So, in this situation, the Mavericks had a chance to make a statement. They were 0-2 against the Clippers this year. They weren't really that close in either game. They kind of stayed in it, but faded away as the game wore on. And unfortunately, that kind of happened again here. Because one theme that is emerging right now with the Mavericks is that while Luka and KP show up, show out, and ball out, they're not getting enough help down the roster. They're not getting enough help from their role players. Now, they are a little bit thin in some areas. Like, as derived as Dwight Powell is among the fan base, the elite lob threat he presented helped open things up for the Mavericks shooters. And his absence since late January has been a hindrance for the Mavericks. Although it led to the emergence of Kristaps Porzingis, it kind of hurt parts of the offense overall. So with that said, you're missing a starter, a typical starter in that case. Brunson been very up and down, but he's also an element that's missing for this team. And the guys that they got and that they're having to lean on are not doing enough for them. And that plays out. We'll get into that in a segment later in this show. But in this scenario, they basically come out and it's rough going early on. Like the Mavericks kind of playing catch up for a lot of this. The Clippers themselves, they're not balling out with regard to Paul George. At the end of one, it's 23-22 LA. Porzingis has 6 points leading all the Maverick scorers. Actually, Dorian Finney-Smith had 7 in the first quarter. And in this situation, while you were keeping Paul George relatively in check, it was just a matter of how long could you deal with the Clippers. And it starts to kind of go against you. Paul George had 7 points, so I guess it wasn't so much in check. But the point being, the Clippers were essentially taking every body blow the Mavericks were throwing at them, and then at half they're leading by 1 as well. The third quarter to me was going to be the interesting one because the third quarter has been a doom spell for the Mavericks at times this year, and in their previous loss, that was the case again in the Phoenix loss. Which, by the way, Phoenix is 4-0, and they've got wins over Dallas, Houston, and the Clippers. Good googly moogly. That's ridiculous. I digress. The Clippers in this game, I was concerned about the third quarter because the Clippers, in addition to their depth, even with the guys they're out missing, they have a lot of veteran experience and toughness about their roster. And so I was anticipating them getting more physical with Dallas. Now, thankfully, it did not impact KP too much because KP and Luka both responded in this game. KP dropped another 30 spot in this game, which I thought was actually pretty impressive in this regard. This is a matchup where, kind of like when the Lakers play the Clippers, they don't really have anything that can match up with KP, or in the Lakers' case, Anthony Davis. And so the best thing you can do is kind of just lean on, in this case, your unicorn, and see what he can do for you. Now, KP drops 30 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists on 9 of 19 shooting, a perfect 9 of 9 at the stripe, and gets a block. Not a whole lot on the defensive end, as you see there, but KP does solid work. In the case of Luka, you get another 29, only 3 rebounds, so a real low rebounding game for Luka, for a guy that's averaging like 9.6 or so boards, or 9.8 boards, something like that, per game this year. But you get 29, 3, and 6 out of Luka. He makes 6 3-pointers, just a hair under 50% on the game, but you're not getting the help down the roster. You get 12 points out of Dorian Finney-Smith. Again, that's 5 the rest of the way after the first quarter. You get only 8 out of Hardaway. That is problematic. As we've talked highly about Hardaway at times this year, it's been him kind of filling in this void as the third man on a lot of nights. Seth is still out with, I believe, a calf strain, Seth Curry, and so you really need Hardaway, because usually you got one or the other going off in a game. Mavericks never really have a game where both of them go off, unless you want to point to the first game of the bubble. Actually, no, Curry was the one who did nothing in that game, so I digress. Curry had like 0 points or 2 points, something like that. So in this situation, you don't get anything out of your third guy. You actually started Boban, which is actually, I think, the first time in NBA history you've had a team start 2 guys at least 7'3". That was pretty incredible, but Boban only plays 6 minutes, 2 points, 4 boards. Trey Burke has given you a little something, 11 points off the bench. I like that. Maxey stepped up a little bit, 10-4. But the problem is that after that, you hit a brick wall, right? You're not getting the elite production you need. The Mavericks cannot find a third option. And so it puts you in a situation where you're ultimately scratching and clawing, just trying to make much of anything happen. And while they did get back into this game, KP caught fire in the fourth quarter, and with about 6 minutes left, the Mavericks knotted it up at 101 all. KP hit back-to-back threes, was doing work, but you could tell he was a little bit gassed. Carlisle tried to make a strategic move, take him out for a minute, insert Luka back in his place, and see if Luka could hold things down just for a little bit before he could get KP back out there. It didn't work, because while the Mavericks were knotted up at 101 all, and actually momentarily had even taken the lead, their first lead since something like 54-53 in the second quarter, they couldn't hang on to it because the Clippers pulled away at that point and ended up winning 126-111. So with half a quarter left, you were right there toe-to-toe, even though you didn't have any of your role players really stepping up in any kind of meaningful way. You were right there trying to close the door, and you simply couldn't get it done, unfortunately. Now, there's reason to be concerned about that with the regard to the bench players not stepping up, and there's reason to be kind of hopeful about that, because it shows Luka and KP are both averaging like 30 points a game in the bubble. They're both showing out. And there was actually somebody who made a note of that. Let me see if I can find that. I saved that tweet here. It's actually from a Knicks fan account, which I was a little surprised about. But he basically talks about how, in this game, Luka and KP combined for 59 points on 40 shots. The rest of the Mavericks had 52 points on 47 shots. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, meanwhile, had 53 points on 44 shots, and the rest of the Clippers, 73 points on 48 shots. It's the bench, it's the depth, because the man who effing killed the Mavericks was Zubac. Absolutely insane. 24 minutes, 21 points, 15 boards, perfect 10 of 10 from the field. As Mark Followell said in the broadcast, if you add up the combined distance of every one of his field goal attempts, he's shooting from 10 feet out. The guy got every little putback, lay-in, anything right at the rim. It just worked for him. His only miss of the night came at the free throw line, 1 of 2. The dude killed us in this game. And there's not a lot you can do about that, man. When you're getting 21 and 15 out of that guy, you're going to be hard-pressed to win a game like this. Because as the Mavericks kept trying to make things happen, it seemed like he would just get another one of those little buckets, and they'd kind of pull away. Kawhi Leonard for the game finishes with 29, 6, and 5. He's 10 of 23 from the field. Paul George, 24, 7, and 6. Their two superstars basically did what they did. But as I've talked about depth on this team, it's worth noting the Clippers have 2 guys off the bench averaging 18 points a game. They've got that Lou Williams, and when they have him, he wasn't here in this game, Harrell. So they absolutely have the firepower to go toe-to-toe with anyone, even if they're getting a rough scoring night out of one of their main, or even 2 of their main focal points. And that's kind of how this game worked out. In addition to that, you get 16 points out of Marcus Morris. Very good production out of him. He was a Mavericks killer earlier this year when he was with the Knicks of all teams. Let's see, who else stood out to me? Green stood out off the bench as well. In 18 minutes, he had 10 and 5. It's just a situation where I was talking with Innie a little bit back and forth during the game, and he kind of pointed out, like, what Luka really needs to add is a mid-range game. He's got the short floater range, and he's doing great attacking the basket and finishing, but he's not... His three-point shot hasn't been there. His defense has actually stepped way up. Luka's defense has been one of the pleasant surprises of the bubble so far for the Mavericks. And I've called it out in short spurts, but I think overall it's certainly elevated as well. I think he's assuming this leadership role in a more complete sense, which you like to see. But I don't know if it's going to ultimately get the Mavericks where they want to go this season, because with this loss they dropped to 1-3, and now they have a situation where they're basically locked into the 7. It's just a matter of if Denver can eclipse the Clippers, no pun intended, and I'm not so sure about that. So let's call out some other things here. The Clippers shot 54% from the field compared to 45% for the Mavericks, 45% from 3 for the Clippers, 14 of 31. The Mavericks shot a lot more threes, 35% for them, 17 of 48. 80% at the line for the Clippers. The Mavericks still win the free throw battle, but not nearly as handily as they did against the Kings. For them, it was 16 of 21 at the line. 7 and 6 are the turnovers. The Clippers won less. So Dallas actually did a decent job protecting the ball in this game, comparatively speaking. But I'd still like to see them step it up. They were out-rebounded 45 to 37. And nothing else jumps out at me too much so. I like a lot what we see with the potential for Luka and KP as a duo. To me, the question is going to be whether or not they can get the support around them, and then if they can continue to develop. There's areas of their games, little holes or weaknesses to their game that need to step forward. And now, unfortunately for the Mavericks, you know, they're basically locked into what I think is the worst possible playoff matchup for them. And so with that being the case, it's like, well, this could be a short but painful and not necessarily so sweet first lesson for this young Mavericks team. Because, yeah, there's not a lot you can do. You've lost now 3 games against the Clippers this year by an average of 11 points. You've been right there twice before fading hard at the end. And we know about this team's problems in the clutch. We know about the consistency issues with regard to some of the guys off the bench and that third scorer role in particular. I just don't know that they've got what they need right now. But regardless, even if that is the way it goes, this season is absolutely a success. Absolutely a success. We talked about this. This was a team that I projected to have 44 wins had they not tweaked the roster at all, which they didn't really. And I had them falling just shy of the playoffs. Instead, they're going to make the playoffs as a 7 seed, and they're going to get valuable experience. that's great. And Luka KP together, once they kind of figured it out, it's as good, if not better, than I expected. So I'm encouraged. It's just a matter of getting the rest of the team where they need. They've got needs. I think they need another solid rebounder down low, a guy that can bang bodies a little bit. I think they need a good 3-and-D option, because while you've had guys like Dorian Finney-Smith elevate their percentages significantly, I still have questions about guys that are undrafted coming in and filling that role. Because Dorian Finney-Smith, I don't know how many more leaps he has to his ceiling. He took a big leap in the offensive side, just talking about his three-point percentage between last year and this year. And I don't know that he has a lot more of those leaps that he can make at this point. So they're going to need something. I think they need a secondary ball handler who can attack off the dribble. They don't have that currently. So you see flashes where actually Trey Burke can do it a little bit, but he's not your long-term option there. We know that. So there's things that Dallas needs to do. There's valuable experience they need to get from this, that they need to glean from this. But I feel pretty good about it. A guy in the post that could be good for them, maybe. Baines could be good for them. But it's just a matter of assessing that when we get to that point. For now, like I said, Clippers take this game 126-111. It was for much of the fourth quarter, half the fourth quarter, I guess, much closer than that. Mavericks going toe-to-toe, even managed to take the lead briefly. But it's a matter for them now of stepping forward and taking that next step. And we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I think they got the Bucks next, so no real optimism on that, other than the notion that Milwaukee might not have a lot to play for. Then again, they just committed a huge comeback against Miami in the second half. I think they started the third quarter on something like a 26-5 run. So yeah, there's a lot to still assess there, and the Greek Freak is still the Greek Freak. I know the Mavericks beat them in Milwaukee earlier this year without Luka, and I'm sure that Milwaukee has not forgotten that. So we'll see how that plays out. I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to end this live stream, make an adjustment, because I see I got to make an adjustment with some of my equipment here. And then I will, here in a few minutes, jump back in with my next segment idea. Like I said, I'm still working out this new little adjustment here on the fly. You guys can't see it right now, but you'll see and understand as the video rolls out. So hang tight. I will be right back. Since I guess I have to end this video, it's probably going to chop it up as if it's separate live streams instead of just treating it like an interruption. So, hey, like the video, drop a comment, subscribe. Woo! Every legend wants a prospect.